If you watched Beef on Netflix and were amazed by the art on the opening title cards, then you may already know that all but one of the art pieces were done by David Choe, who happened to play Isaac in the show. And if you're curious and want to know more about each of those paintings, we are going to dive into them in a little bit.
Ta-dam!
Lee Sung-jin, the creator of Beef, had previously intended to use classic paintings, just like episode 1's A Meat Stall with the Holy Family Giving Alms, to represent each episode, but instead was suggested by David Choe to handpick from hundreds of his paintings that the public haven't seen before. This to say, they weren't literally hidden from the public eye because I was able to source and find all of them on the internet. As an art appreciator, since I pretty much have no credentials in the field of art outside of doing art as a hobby, I binge watched all of the episodes of Beef in one evening last week into the hours of 2:30 in the morning. And with each episode's title card, my jaw dropped as they came on screen, even knowing nothing about what was going to be in the episode that would come after it. And when I was done watching the show, I felt compelled to learn more about each of the pieces that were selected for the show. So there's already several articles and videos out there that go into detail and explain how each artwork more or less represents or is symbolic of the themes and summary of each episode. But this video is not that. Well, not exactly. For me, after watching the show, I almost obsessively wanted to know more or what I could about each piece of art outside of the context of the show. Like, when was it created? What was maybe the origin of the piece? Really, I just wanted to find out what could be found out about each piece. And fair warning, I'm probably going to be making some high-level comparison to the other takes about what the meaning of the art piece is in relation to the show. However, I am going to try my best to remain spoiler-free. That said, art is interpretive to the viewer, so I would say that the contents of this video are just my perspective on David Choe's artwork selected for Beef after doing some light homework. After scouring hundreds of paintings by David Choe from 1999 to 2023 on davidchoe.com, I was able to find most of his art used for the title cards on his website. Toss in Instagram and Google reverse search, I was able to compile a really rough timeline of when approximately each of the 9 artworks used for the title cards, so episodes 2 through 10, were created. There's not a ton of history online about each of these pieces, so everything that I'm sharing is what I was able to find publicly on the internet. I'm going to go in the order in which the art was shown in the Beef show, so that way it's easier for you guys to just skip around or ahead to the pieces that you care about in the timestamps in the description below. So episode 2, Waiting Room. I'm not exactly sure if the title of this piece is Waiting Room or if this was a painting that was on display in a waiting room of Choe's 2017 Choe Show event in Koreatown, LA. The 2017 Choe Show is not the same show as his 2021 TV series, which you can find on Hulu, but it does have the same premise of sharing stories about trauma and pain. In 2017, David Choe hosted a secret invite-only show where attendees had to go through a really extensive application process to be able to get into the show. The art show displayed a lot of portraits and really focused on attendees sharing their pain and facing their trauma. This piece in particular shows a bare woman looking over her shoulder while sitting in a padded room, kind of like the ones that you see from asylums and psychiatric hospitals. Her posture is hunched in what kind of looks like a fearful manner, and you'll also notice that there is a person's watchful face on the right side of her back. It is the only part of her that isn't distorted or chaotic. And because the environment feels clinical, like a padded room is really intended to prevent self harm, it makes me feel like this face on her back is not a friendly face. I think it's interesting to reflect on this piece as waiting room because it's almost like it's a prologue for diagnosis and eventual healing. The artwork seen in episode 3 was created around 2012. The obvious concept and meaning of this one, of course, is backstabbing, which is a recurring theme in the show. What's interesting about this original watercolor piece is that when you zoom out, not only are the two people embraced backstabbing each other, but they're actually fully exposed from their waist down. I think for two people to be exposed in this way to one another makes you wonder, was this an intimate but toxic relationship? Also, another thing that really draws me in is the medium of watercolor, which always feels more delicate than oil and acrylic, making this piece feel almost fragile. The title art for episode 4 is of a person sitting in a near empty room with a water jug dispenser and sitting on what looks like either a table or a large ottoman. This one was created around 2009, and there's little information on this piece as it's tagged as miscellaneous on davidchoe.com. This one also looks of mixed media like ink, watercolor, and maybe white color pencil or white gouache layered on top. Here, on its own, just taking it all in, it seems like the subject is wrapped in white bandages and is sitting. But the pose in which the person is sitting is one that is typically where people are relaxed, but yet they are wearing a very forlorn expression. Are they waiting or reflecting? The emptiness of the environment in which they are sitting in makes it feel like it's a moment of despair. Episode 5 was one that I was able to find from David Choe's Instagram. It's difficult to say if this was actually created in 2020, which was the time of the Instagram post, which it should be noted that 2020 is the only year that's missing between 1999 and 2023 on David Choe's website. I don't know if it is the title of this piece, but this one was accompanied on Instagram with a caption of "New Dude on a Recliner." Which, of course, the dude does stick out like a sore thumb when you compare it to what looks like a large family and everything else in the painting. He's also the only one that is sitting fully exposed. Even the lamp objects, the painting on the wall, look more comfortable and at home than he does. Others have already made a point on why this painting might have been selected for episode 5, which was titled Such Inward Secret Creatures, which is about the big headedness of people. But when you really consider and focus on the exposed dude on the recliner, being a new person in any situation can sometimes feel scary and vulnerable. And it can be terrifying to fit in when everything else seems so cohesive, close, and familiar. Outside of the family's faces, as well as the dude in the recliner, everything on this painting comes more in a impressionist style, especially in the entirety of the new dude on a recliner is painted really chaotically and distorted, not too dissimilar from the woman in the padded room, which makes me feel for the guy, that feeling of being out of place, uncomfortable, and messed up. Episode 6 is another art piece that I believe went on display in David Choe's 2017 Choe Show in Koreatown. Again, the focus of the art show was about sharing pain without judgment or shame. I think in context of the beef show, this painting kind of feels like carrying darkness on the inside while putting on your happy clothes on the outside. That said, this piece being part of the Choe Show private exhibition in 2017 makes me feel like it could go many ways, given the fact that in 2017, the focus of the show was on pain and healing. So one interpretation could just be like how the beef show intended to use this artwork, which is to be more about like taking off a mask, which is your face, to show the pain that one is enduring underneath. Or maybe on the other hand, despite the chaos and pain that lives internal to us, we can make choices externally that can help us move forward and heal. In both cases, I do think that there is an optimistic tone to this painting. There are bright colors that are popping out of the darkness, which makes me feel like there is some sort of theme of not having to hide anymore. The artwork for episode 7 was another one that I really struggled to find. As I made my way to the 2010s in Cho's archived work, I found pieces that were similar, but not exact to the title card in the show. That is until I realized this eerily similar piece that was on display at Cho's Nothing to Declare exhibition in 2010 was just flipped for the beef title card. The original piece, titled Don't Wait Up For Me, I May or May Not Come Back, was created with oil and spray paint and showcases an entanglement of limbs. This image was also included in the Nothing to Declare zine that was signed and handed out to the first 187 people that attended the exhibition. In the context of beef, like others have mentioned, with a episode title such as I Am Cage, it likely represents the self-inflicting cages that the characters have created for themselves. But with a painting title of Don't Wait Up For Me, I May or May Not Come Back, it really makes me wonder if it is a different kind of entanglement. Especially with the opening line of Don't Wait Up For Me, which I feel like is something you would typically say to a loved one. It seems to imply that there is someone who is entangled, maybe with some personal vices, other lovers, emotional struggles. And it's tough to say if this is a situation that one can easily become untangled in, especially when you can't exactly tell where the limbs and body begins and ends. The artwork for episode 8 is the piece that made me stop in my tracks. I actually rewound to the title card in this one because I wanted to sit with this piece a little bit longer. This artwork showcases 3 young kids sitting on a couch with their faces obscured, and the only parts of them that you can really see on the face are their eyes. This piece worked, of course, really well for episode 8 because episode 8 is the flashback episode. In actuality, the 3 kids portrayed in this piece are the 3 Choe brothers. This same photo, Choe did a variation of 2008, and then again in 2017-18-ish, where we have a much more chaotic version, which is the version that was used in beef. So in various videos and interviews, David Choe has talked about his childhood trauma of being the only one that was sent away from his family as a child. And that led to his fear of abandonment. In episode 2 of his 2021 TV series, The Choe Show, at one point in time, this piece is shown on screen and Choe even voiceovers, "You got punished for being good and bad things will happen." I think knowing elements of his backstory, you can definitely sense a brokenness in the childhood of these 3 brothers. It's almost as if their matching clothes turn instead to portray some shattering of their young brotherhood. At least that is what it appears to me, which again, art is open for interpretation. The artwork for episode 9 was originally titled Silent Dance. This one, which likely was painted with oil and acrylic, is eerily dark, and it shows what looks like a child looking perhaps longingly at a mother's embrace. Or maybe the expression is lovingly or questioning. Off to the side, you'll also notice that there is an older adult face that is looking solemnly down. It feels to me that this again is a dark and lonely moment. Now, this piece was actually the most difficult for me to search for because I couldn't find any trace of it on davidchoe.com or in any of his socials. While I was searching through his 2007 archive, I did stumble upon similar oil and acrylic forest paintings that were previously on display in the Jonathan Living Gallery. So I did have a guess that this piece was probably painted around that time period, give or take a couple years. This was the only piece that I ended up using Google image search for, which ended up bringing me to eBay, where you can buy one of the 200 signed Prince of Silent Dance for $5,000. The last episode's title art was created around 2012. If you watched all of Beef, it should be fairly obvious why this watercolor piece was symbolic of the final episode. For those that haven't watched Beef yet, if you do end up watching it, I think it'll make sense. But regardless, this piece is an emotional one. You have a silhouette of a figure fully hunched over on the ground with an outpouring of colors coming from their midsection. To me, this stance isn't a position that people tend to choose to be in. It's almost like one is succumbing, falling to their knees to this unexpected outpour. It feels uncontrollable, yet beautiful. When you look at this piece, you have to ask yourself, what do you see first? Do you see that even a darkened soul can have light and colors within? Or do you see a recently wounded figure who is now losing all their color? I definitely feel like this one can be a glass half full or empty sort of art piece. And we can't possibly know what David Choe was feeling or intending when he painted this one. What we can assume though, Beef, spoiler alert, is that creator Lee Sung-jin, most likely with a title such as Figures of Light, intended that the art piece represent moving towards a future of enlightenment by first acknowledging a dark past and present. I've already said a few times before, but art is interpretive. So whether or not you agree or disagree with me on my opinions and takes of the artwork, there is a high chance that you are here because you appreciated the art in Beef. So let me know what your favorite pieces amongst these were, and maybe even some theories that you may have now that we have just a little bit more information about each of them. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit the like button. Let me know what you'd like to see more of, or even things that you could have done without. And if you like games, comics, and art, so that is what my channel Only Nugs is about. Feel free to check out some of my other videos. And if you like what you see, you can always subscribe to see more content like this. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Ta-da!